Probably noticed that the city that we just looked out over is a lot lower down than this part of the city. Well, these gates are from the time of King Solomon. We read yesterday how Solomon fortified Megiddo, Hazor and Gezer. And so these are some of the fortifications of Solomon in Hazor, and we find the same kind in these other cities as well, just like the book of Kings says. But I want to take this opportunity to talk a bit about gates, city gates. What do you guys know about city gates in the biblical times? Yeah?
Boaz did business there.
Boaz did business, yeah?
They had the courts of justice at the gates.
They had the courts of justice at the gates, exactly.
Would men gather and talk at the gates as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the gates were sort of a public meeting place. It's where you would do business, it's where the elders would judge and that sort of thing. So it's a very public place, and often that is why, for instance, the prophets talk about justice at the gates. That doesn't really make much sense to us. But I think when you see this whole thing, it's not just these bits that's the gates, but it's the whole of this complex over to that bridge or thing over here. And so you see these sort of chambers here where people could meet and commerce could be done. So let's take and read from the book of Ruth, because that is, as someone mentioned, where we have a very famous matter being dealt with at the gate. And we'll see another of these gate complexes later as we head further north to the city of Dan. Do you guys know the story of Ruth fairly well? Yeah. So, I never remember the names, but Naomi and her husband Elimelech went down with their sons to Moab during a time of famine. The sons marry Moabites, and the sons die, and so does Elimelech. And Naomi decides to head back to Bethlehem. So this is obviously far from Bethlehem, but you see the point with the gates. And she comes back with nothing but her daughter-in-law to Bethlehem. And they meet Boaz. And Boaz is a distant relative. And so according to the law back then, he could marry Ruth. And by doing that, he would, well, actually he could claim the inheritance of the sons of Elimelech and Naomi, and sort of redeem what was lost through them dying, redeem that inheritance. But doing that, he would also gain Ruth as part of that. So let's read what it says. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate, something like this, and sat down there just as the guardian redeemer he had mentioned came along. So that was the relative that was slightly closer, who also had an opportunity to claim or to redeem this inheritance. Boaz said, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." So he went over and sat down, maybe into one of these sort of spaces. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here," and they did so. Then he said to the guardian redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line." "I will redeem it," he said. Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property." At this, the guardian redeemer said, "Then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it to yourself. I cannot do it." Any children he would have with Ruth would inherit as if they were the children of Ruth's first husband. So that's why it's talking about his property. Yeah, so he's talking about endangering his own estate. So he said, "You redeem it yourself, I cannot do it." Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transactions in Israel. Do we have any people in sandals who want to swap?
The flip-flops count?
Flip-flops count, definitely. You would take it off and you would hand it as, there we go, as a sign of transaction. Business has been made.
You don't know what you've lost, though. Okay.
Eric, did they actually swap?
Actually, you're right. It just says one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other.
It's a terrible waste of our sandals.
Well, again, you have this sense that it's all done in public. And so I think it's that other people are seeing that you're making this transaction. And actually, it's quite a weird thing, isn't it, to take off your sandal? It might be that it would be such a clear sign that an agreement has been made. You wouldn't have signed things necessarily, but you would have been witnessed in public giving away your sandal as a sign of this
Take
transaction.
that sandal and put it in your safe because that's your deed.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's a
it
pre-runner.
could have been.
Pre-runner of the engagement ring.
Well, exactly. It's all of that being, seeing things in public. And obviously we do that slightly differently now. We have all kinds of records, and you have to, for instance, when you get married, you sign the register. But again, the whole wedding ceremony is something that you do in public. You don't go and marry sort of in secret because no one will know. The whole idea is that it's done in public. And again here, the elders would be here, and so the heads of the community would see all of these transactions happening. So that was Ruth chapter 4. Right, let's head on, shall we?